Joining the Construction Lending Podcast is Tennessee Valley Federal Credit Union to discuss their journey into construction lending. They're tackling the home inventory crunch with a well-crafted program that's all about detail and diligence.
We're trying to be ahead of the game and saw this as a natural fit to kind of make sure we can continue our loan production and growth that way, because if our members couldn't find the house to buy, well, let's give them the means to build it.
How much does passion play into the success of these programs?
We really do have to understand the nuances because, to me, the loan officer is always that point person, should be the subject matter expert.
What do you think the biggest things that get in the way of a credit union offering this program?
Having leadership that understands the product, or even a general understanding of it, to be behind you with it, I think is probably one of the biggest things. So again, one of the questions that comes up is, how do I pitch this?
I'd like to welcome everybody to the Construction Lending Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Ferris, and today we have a special guest, Andy Woodman. And Andy joins us from Tennessee Valley Federal Credit Union, or Tennessee Valley Credit Union, as I like to say. Welcome to the podcast, Andy.
Thanks, Sean. Happy to be here. Appreciate the invite. Looking forward to it.
And I think you're the first credit union, we've had on the podcast. So I'm really excited. You guys are really, really special as you were just starting out a construction lending program.
Yes. First of all, what took you so long to invite a credit union to the table? Come on. Yeah, we rolled our program out early part of this year. It's really taken off. I know as we've kind of talked with Land Gorilla, because we partnered with y'all to kind of help launch it and get the foundation built. We've essentially done no real marketing around the product. And, we knew there was a need from the membership. We'd been fielding questions and been asked, and yeah, we couldn't be happier with the way it's kind of taken off, and we still haven't really actively promoted it yet. So I think the sky's the limit with it.
That's great. And we'll get a little bit more into like the current state. I'm so excited to jump into that. But before we do that, give me kind of an idea about the credit union, your size, who you guys serve, what your membership base looks like. And
yeah, sure. So we're a community-based credit union. We're in basically right on the border of Northwest Georgia and the Tennessee Valley. So we're federal. We have a 17 county footprint. Headquartered in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and assets over about 2.6 billion in assets, I believe, at last count. Yeah, we're actually the number one lender and really kind of promote home ownership and in our markets. So
that's great. Now, what brought about like interest in construction lending is your membership base, originators on the team. Like where's this interest coming from?
Yeah, I think it's so a combination of things, right? So yes, members asking, we've offered a land loan for quite a bit. And so for me, the next natural step kind of to have an out for that product is to give them the means to go ahead and take that raw land and eventually build on it. Because ideally, that's why we're giving the money to purchase and, and acquire the lot to begin with. Two, I think, as we looked at the market, right? And so you look at home sales, the lack of inventory that's out there. We're trying to be ahead of the game and saw this as a natural fit, to kind of make sure we can continue our loan production and growth that way. Because if our members couldn't find the house to buy, well, let's give them the means to build it. And so I think it's really starting to resonate, it's resonating with them. And like I mentioned before, we've had calls come in asking if we had the product. So I think, again, given the state of the industry and the markets in total, I think people are becoming more aware of this product and are starting to inquire and ask more questions about it. So we felt like it was the right time to roll it out.
Well, what were you doing before? Somebody would come in and ask for construction loan and say like, hey, we really don't do that.
It was exactly that conversation. Well, because you don't really want to send them somewhere else. So, I think the conversation was more so, you're not the only person to ask that. And we've started to really look into building it. So, and we'd ask the members questions just to kind of get some, to try and get more granular about what the needs are. So as we built it, we kind of could hyper focus in on, what we were being asked. And so that's kind of when we rolled it out, that's really how we kind of catered it. So
it really sounds like it started with some interest and, hey, I'm calling again. You guys doing that yet? Oh, well, not quite. We're thinking about it. Like, what were some of the things that kind of led up to finally pulling the trigger and saying, hey, yeah, this is, it's time we do it today. And, what do we got to do to get it done?
Sure. So in 2023, it actually was part of the goals developed by our entire senior leadership. So having this product, developing it, and bringing it to market was something we had set as a target in 23, which again, we built it, developed it, we met that goal. And then, basically set, 1/1 is more or less the target rollout for it. So I think for us, again, we talked it up enough. We convinced, our CEO and the rest of, again, the executive team here that there was a need for it. Here's where the benefits were. Between our accounting side, marketing team, everybody saw the, you know, how this could all kind of play in, and we can get synergy with, other products and with the memberships, the members we have. And yeah, everybody was like, this is a good idea. And so, again, having that support in the background, kind of urging us on, not, excusing the fact that we wanted it, right? Really, I think just created, again, just the opportunity for this thing to really just come together like it did.
Oh, that's awesome. So the leadership team, everybody gives their thumbs up, says, go do it, right? And
Yep.
off to the races. Well, what were some of the, you've had experience before, putting together a construction lending program at other credit unions or other financial institutions.
Right.
So you kind of had a little bit of a roadmap of what was expected, but what were some of those areas that you had to look into and go, all right, we got closing docs, they work, like what were, I mean, there has to be a nice loud cheat sheet list. And I'm trying to think, for those that are listening that are, maybe considering the same thing, what kind of, what are those things that they should be paying attention to as they think about rolling something like this out?
Yeah. There's a lot. So, to your point, right? It's does your LOS support it, right? Start there first and foremost. Can we credibly originate the loan? And so again, we're an Encompass user, so we found, that the infrastructure was there for that. Um, Again, developing the docs, where were we going to lend, right? Who's going to vet the builder? How do we vet the builder? Um, for me, as I've had the program before, like you mentioned, I do think it helps to have someone that specializes or has that background, that's familiar with the product, right? Because I always, like, as we told the team here, it's a two-phase approach. The loan comes in, from the applicant or the member or the borrower, and the LO does their normal loan vetting and all that. But there's this whole other set of documents that you have to have for the builder, plans, specs. You want to do your due diligence on the builder, right? You say due diligence, well, what does that mean? Are you doing background checks, credit checks, references? That's a whole other, so that loan kind of takes a fork in the road, and it goes one way to our normal underwriting and loan ops process, but who's going to do this part over here, right, with the builder? So, again, where someone like having you all kind of in tow really helped, because again, why recreate the wheel when you've got resources that are out there? And I will mention too, credit unions tend to be very helpful with one another. The cross sharing and of ideas, and why go and fight a battle that's already been fought, right? So we were able to lean on a few others and kind of get some of the, I think the foundation and forms, program guidelines, things like that from them to really help us. And that, again, if you're a credit union doing this, I would say do two things, right? Reach out to find a partner to help you with the management and the vetting process, but reach out to your peers. Again, ask questions. You all hosted a kind of roundtable. I believe it's quarterly. I said it on the last one. It's fantastic, right? Like, people just are talking about, oh, wait, have you come across this? Or we did this. Don't do that. So there's all these resources out there. You just have to sometimes just ask or know where to look. And I think that's the hardest part, is knowing where to look, right? So, again, I think, that it's not easy to stand it up. Let's be clear. It's, we're more familiar and comfortable with traditional mortgage loan products. This is a little outside of the norm, and it requires, I think, a specialized hand to do it. So again, everything that you all provide and kind of what others have done, I think is paramount to getting it stood up. So
that's great. I'm going to recap kind of what a couple of the little nuggets that I heard in there.
Yeah, I went all over the place there. Sorry.
No, first one that you led with, which I really found interesting, because we just had ICE experience last month, the big user conference for ICE, and now which includes MSP, which was absolutely fantastic. Construction lending being a hot topic amongst a lot of their attendees, and a lot of the great, amazing things that are coming out with ICE, especially with their new web-based platform. But you mentioned and you led with that, and I am kind of self-interested here, because it's probably one of the great starting points and one of the biggest hurdles you got to get over is, hey, if your LOS doesn't have the rails to support it and you're going to have to jump through a lot of hoops, it's going to be a longer, more painful experience. But you guys are on ICE. It sounded like they gave you the thumbs up, and it was just a lot of configuration or some level of configuration, right?
Yep.
The second one you gravitated towards was docs, right? So, and when we're talking about docs, you mean the LE, the CD, the loan agreement, the legal instruments that kind of have to come together to really perfect that construction loan. And that seemed like it was also on the Encompass rails.
Yep, correct.
Fantastic. Then you kind of got into like builder vetting and the due diligence, references, background check, kind of reviewing of the plans and specs when you get a project. And thank you for the credit that you gave Langorilla there. We're happy to assist. But the podcast is not about Langorilla. This is going to be about the one thing that you left out that I think you started to kind of get into is kind of like the training, like the internal, how do we educate ourselves as well as how do we educate our members? And maybe you could talk a bit about that.
Yeah. So again, I think so we have one person designated here that kind of helps coordinate the builder, the aggregating of the builder documents, she kind of puts it together, and then my boss and I kind of do the initial review before we send it over to you all, right? And so how do you take someone with zero experience in this and explain to them, all right, here's what you need, go get it. And, you get that deer in headlights look. So I think, between the training as far as the structuring of the loan and the product that ICE offers, and I will give them kudos. They do have a pretty good regiment there. You all have, a variety of courses and classes that we've leaned heavily on. It's between MBA, Acuma, these are groups that are Acuma, for example, specifically the credit unions. Like there are, courses, classes out there that we found that are really, really good. And it gives that foundational knowledge. And, again, we walked by and the young lady I was referencing is watching YouTube videos on construction, right? This podcast, we told her to go and listen to y'all's podcast, right? Like the more you kind of inundate yourself or immerse yourself in it, you kind of just grasp these things. So when you hear it, you're like, wait a minute, like you recall and you can remember it. And I think the more we can kind of we've just tried to put as much and as many things in front of folks as we can, because for us, it's not something that we have the resources to come up with on our own, right? And so it kind of, again, speaks back to there are options and means to get these things out there in the construction lending space. And again, it's asking the right questions of the right people. Not all of them are great, right? So you task, like for me, as we built the program, I put one person on it, get feedback. Let's find out, was it worthwhile? Was it not worthwhile? And so we've just kind of structured our training platform that way. And it should be an ever evolving thing, right? Like just because we have it built doesn't mean that's static. Rules change, regs change, construction methods and all that change. So, like you just have to keep up with it, and you just have to I think, pay it the proper attention it deserves. And again, without training, we learned we didn't do the right training out of the gate. I will say that. And so this was kind of just like the shotgun approach to construction, right? So things just went all over the place, and everybody's, like when I say literally running down the hall with your hair on fire, that's kind of how we felt a lot of times. So after the first couple, you kind of, part of it is trial and error too, right? You just kind of have to jump both feet in and have at it. And we learned that way too. And so not something I highly recommend, to be quite honest with you. But we got through it. So and now the program, 4 months later is much smoother, right? So as a result of that.
Sounds like a little learn by doing there. That was
Very much so. Very much so.
and what and we may have skipped over this, but what type of, can you describe the construction loan product that you're offering? Is this construction of perm, construction only? How are you?
It's a one-time closed construction perm. So we offer it on fixed and ARM products on the permanent side of the loan. And then what we've done is for we offer it on jumbo and conforming loan limits. We offer the same rate through construction as we do in the permanent financing. So depending on what the start rate is there, interest only during the construction phase. So yeah, we tried to make it really, I want to say aggressive, but like we were trying to make it, something that would really entice members. And like I said, we haven't really out and out promoted it a whole lot. And those that have kind of, as we've talked to multiple people and, they've done their due diligence, they're picking us. And I think it's because we've built a product that really kind of resonates with folks. So
You're not leaving rate on the table as an objection response. I'll take
correct.
That's absolutely amazing. But what were some of the kind of shifting gears here, as you were putting all this together, and we kind of recited, all the kind of the big hoops that that you were jumping through to get this thing launched. What were some of the concerns as you were, stepping into offering, this type of loan product, especially with the leadership team or your CEO? They had to have this, like, how are we going to do this? Is this safe? What were some of the concerns that were running through everybody's minds?
Yeah, I think it was, again, with the builder aspect of it. We have a pretty defined footprint, and so while we can lend pretty much anywhere, we have kind of reined this one in and have tried to keep it with markets we're comfortable with. So I will say we've made every effort we could to be part of or join home builders associations, so we're as familiar as we can be with the local builders in the market, and we constantly market to them. But again, making sure it's for both our sake and our members' sake. Is this builder who they say they are? Are they going to build a quality product that kind of meets up to our expectations and standards? I think, again, just the outside of the origination piece too. Right. Okay. So we're going to keep this loan on our, we're servicing the construction piece of it. Do we have that infrastructure set up on our core? Because we utilize a subservicer for our permanent our permanent loans. So, we have to then take control and make sure we have the right amount of people, the resources, everything from accounting down to our IT department has to make sure that product's built, ready, can do what we are saying it can do. So yeah, I mean that's all part and parcel with this. Like I said, it's not just the front end piece. You have to consider post close and through the build. How are you going to work it? So
yeah, no, that's really interesting. What is the where do you see this program kind of moving forward in the future? I know you're only about 4 months in since launch, right? Mm-hmm. Let's flash forward 2 years. How do you see it looking in 2 years?
To be honest with you, we kind of see it as kind of one of those keystone products in our kind of portfolio of product offerings, because I think it's a cool product. Like, I personally love it, right? I mean, we've talked sidebar, and for me, it's one of those things I kind of nerd out about. But it's so nuanced. But I think it kind of really helps us kind of cement ourselves in our market. It allows us to stay kind of prominent as to our goal of being the top lender in the areas we serve. And again, we, with the supply being the way it is, home supply, right? Like, that's nothing that's going to be fixed overnight. And expectations are interest rates aren't probably going to move to where you're going to see a flood of resales come on the market. So this to me is kind of a real way to make sure we stay in the game and continue, can meet the production, expectations we have. We're 4 months in, right? We've got 3 loans closed. I was looking, we have another 5 in process right now. We have, probably a dozen or so, I say TBDs, pre-qualified borrowers who are out looking for property or, or entertaining this product. And again, that's all without any marketing being done on this. So for us, if we can do maybe 15-20% of our production falls into this product, that we'd be ecstatic, right? So again, it's one of those loans too that I think will just pay dividends down, continue to pay dividends down the road. So
yeah, no, you mentioned that, hey, we haven't even done any marketing yet. You've already closed 3, got 5 more kind of in your pipeline right now, and more to follow after that, without any marketing. Well, how is anybody finding out about this if you haven't even turned on the marketing switch yet?
Yeah, it's again calling in. We kind of just word of mouth actively promote it as, our loan officers are out working with borrowers, who are looking to buy, and we're like, well, have you thought about this? We had a scenario the other day where we had a member actually pay off their loan. And so, our construction specialist sits within our servicing area, and, she just happened to take the phone call, field the phone call. And, in the course of that conversation, she was asking, kind of for forgiveness. She was like, hey, give me a second. I'm sorry. I don't normally do this. I'm in the construction lending area. And he was like, wait a second, you have a construction lending product? And, it turns out the gentleman was looking to build like $1 million house in 5 months. And she was like, well, let me turn you over to a loan officer, so it's again, just being aware of, talking it up and just listening to the membership and just, knowing what's going on around, what people might be interested in. So.
Oh, that's exciting. So it's like going from like this word of mouth that's, almost contagious. Like that's,
Yeah.
I can see my wife and I doing something like that. Like, did you know that they offer this? Oh my gosh,
Exactly.
and then
Right. Well, and that's kind of like when we do tell people, they're like, we didn't know you had that. And we're like, yeah, we do. So,
we just put in an application over here. What are your rates? And that's going to be the one that blows the doors off when they see like the mechanics and how all of that works. I think it sounds super marketable.
Yeah.
What are your plans for marketing? Like, you're not doing anything now. Like, when are you going to turn on the spigot?
Yeah, we so obviously centered around the website. I will say one of the luxuries we have at Tennessee Valley is we have an outstanding marketing department, and we have a specific marketing person dedicated to mortgage. And so she's actively out, within the realtor and builder communities. She serves on several boards for those those entities. So, I think just I don't want to limit us to what we can do. I think it's going to be a full-on assault, and just putting it out there and flooding, our markets with, hey, we do this, we do it well. It's a great product. Give us a call. Between in-branch, word of mouth, website, social media. I mean, I envision that's probably the path we're going to go with this.
Yeah, no, that is I mean, I can just see this thing just taking off and getting traction once you kind of start to fine tune it and get the word out to more people. Now, I also see you guys do a lot of business banking, on your website, for your members. Are some of those members builders to begin with and contractors? I mean, you got to have a nice segment of those already existing.
We do. In fact, we've got one in process right now for a builder we bank. So, which again makes it, for us, that goes, I think, a long way towards getting that familiarity and peace of mind of who we're doing business with, right? So we have our borrower member, but if we're already working with the builder, in the finance capacity, then again, it just makes it easier. And we're a known quantity to them too, right? So I mean, they're using us knowing that we're providing them, services and products that they already find, a good fit for them. So this product, just kind of falls right in line with that.
Oh, that's great. Now we've talked about, what it took to get the program launched, and talked a little bit about your marketing. And, you mentioned that, hey, we've already closed 3 of these, right? What have kind of been the learning lessons around closing those 3 loans that you've done already? You cited that, hey, we're kind of learning by doing here, but
Yeah.
Any recommendations or any lessons learned that you have thus far?
Yeah. Don't cut corners. So make sure everything that you have these lists and checklists of items for a reason. Make sure you're collecting it all. Um, I will say, admittedly, sometimes there were instances where you all would come back and as we get the package together and send it to Langorilla for review, we'd be like, oh no, that's okay, we'll waive that. Well, in hindsight, that probably wasn't such a good with certain things. So we've learned to be a little more cautious with the sign-offs or pen, I should say. So there's a reason why there are processes and the items we ask of the builder. Make sure you're getting it. Make sure you get familiar with what those items are. Review them yourself. Look and like with loan officers, we tell them, read your findings, like read the credit, like make sure you go through it thoroughly. Read the results that come back after the builder review. Make sure you fully understand what it is that's being asked for, why it may be deficient. And every builder, every contract's different, right? But at its core, there are a lot of similarities, so you know what to look for. It is, again, another one of those learn by doing processes. But yeah, I would say definitely don't go into this thinking you're smarter than you are. Don't cut the corners and kind of follow protocols that have been established, and you'll be all right at the end of the day.
It's so interesting you say that, because I can't say how many times I've seen these scenarios. Oh, we'll just waive those conditions. We'll waive those conditions, and then something pops up 6 months later, and they're going, hey, what happened with this builder? He did this, and this, and doesn't want to do X, Y, and Z, and they're fighting, or it's going to arbitration, whatever
Right.
the story is. And you go look, it's like, oh well, you waived this contractor acknowledgement disclosure of what you move forward with it. Well,
Right.
they're expecting you to abide by this, and they didn't agree to it. There's
Right.
I think the most important advice there that I would add on to yours, Andy, is that, and I think you even said it, is that whoever's playing that, call it the loan originator that's taking that information back, saying, hey, I need X, Y, and Z, or hey, this didn't, we need to collect this, that they understand why they're doing it.
Yep.
Maybe what the implications are if they don't do it, because it's going to be the first question that they get from the builder is, well, why do you need the detailed cost breakdown? I don't understand. This is cost to build. Why does it have to be itemized? Well, here, let me explain why, because it aligns with borrower's draw schedule and construction loan agreement, and that's how disbursements are made. So we do need it broke down, and if your profit overhead, if you want to disperse it amongst the line items evenly, we completely understand that. If not, carve it out. Well, it's not their business knowing how much profit and overhead I make. Well, there's ways to mitigate that. So that just comes with time and seasoning and experience.
Yep.
Any other lessons or recommendations you'd give to other lenders that hey, you're going to start kind of manufacturing these loans and going through the process? Any other suggestions you'd give them on stay away from this, do this?
Yeah, I think a slow rollout, kind of like how we did it. I think don't think this is a product that you launch and then can probably accommodate 20, 30 loans right out of the gate. The likelihood of that happening is probably not very high, but at the same time, I think there is something to be said about fine-tuning your process with it, and being open to the idea of making changes. Just because you go in thinking one thing, understand that you need to be flexible and fluid enough to understand that, oh, this is not going to work, or this probably wasn't a good idea to start with. So open, flexible, and take your time with it, right? And it gets back to, again, do as much due diligence as you can as you build it. Don't reinvent the wheel. Learn from others' mistakes, which again, for us, I think was something we probably could have lent a little more heavily on, which would have saved us some growing pains at the very, very early stages. But over time, you kind of figure it out.
Yeah, we had another guest on the podcast that referred to it as the first 5. Hey, don't do anything until you get the first 5 under your belt. Yep. Do post-mortem or autopsies on each one of those at various stages, and process. When you get to the 5th one, then start turning on, thinking about other ways.
You'll have to invite me back because we haven't even gotten to the modification stage, so I don't even know what that's going to look like.
I think if you flash forward in a year and have how are things going? You know?
It's like the restaurant Impossible, where they fix the restaurant, but then they come back later to find out a year from now what happened. If you see I've lost all my hair, we didn't learn our lesson.
Places are empty or it's either or, but it's never anything in the middle. But no, that's funny. Well, offline, you mentioned something about actually even on this podcast, you mentioned about going out and getting help, and you mentioned the Kuma and the Mortgage Bankers Association, but there's also another network that you're affiliated with, and I see your shirt right there. I think that's
yes, I am rocking the logo wear today. Yeah, the Southeast Credit Union Real Estate Network. We call it Secure, and we have Acuma, which again kind of covers large scale the country. This is more, I think, like a regional collective for real estate lending credit unions. Our territory runs from Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, North and South Carolina. And so, it's a really wide footprint because I think what we find is there aren't many credit unions in that footprint that do real estate lending. So, we've kind of created this space for to share ideas, get together. We hold, in fact, right now we're hosting multiple workshops where we try and regionally, give everybody the opportunity. We present a little education, but it's really just this roundtable forum where, like I say, credit unions are really good about sharing information, and they just need the forum to do so, and we kind of try and provide that. And we have a conference every year in the fall. This year's at Savannah. I'm happy to say that you'll be joining us, which I'm really excited about. So thank you for doing that. Where it's like a 1.5 day long event. And I think what people find is, again, for vendors that come, we're really accessible. We're eager to learn and find out about the latest, greatest new products, technologies that are out there. But credit union folks just are really good people, at their core. So not to say the bankers and traditional mortgage bankers are not, but there's just this servant mentality with credit unions that, we usually don't compete with one another across state lines very often. And even when we do, we still get along pretty well. So there's just that's why there's this willingness to help, and it just feeds into the credit union mantra of doing right by others. And like this product, construction lending came about because we wanted to find something to help the membership because we saw there was a need and they were asking for it. So it's kind of what drives the group and drives credit unions in general, and just a really good group of people too. So,
well, how does that work? If I try to put myself in your shoes and go backwards in time a little bit to when you're thinking about doing this, do you just start picking up the phone? Do you go to the event, like, hey, raise your hand, like, anybody making any construction loans right now? Like,
yep.
And just people
that's pretty much exactly how it. So it's funny, we go in with kind of, because so we have a board, right, and most of us are in some leadership position within our credit union, and so as we get together, we kind of share ideas, and it's usually pretty similar things that we kind of all base questions about. But so when we have these events and we get to the roundtable piece, we're prepared to at least kind of start to field lead people to questions or throw things out there. But oftentimes I find we really don't have to, because again, and every event we have, construction lending is a question that comes up at every event without fail. I've been part of the group since 2016. I can't tell you a event where that wasn't a question. How do you start it? Or those that have it, hey, have you ever had this? Or, what's your construction phase look like? It's just people trying to get ideas of how to build it. How do you get it started? And again, it gets back to why reinvent the wheel? There's plenty of us that have been down this path and done it, that are willing to share the information. So, the Securin's a great place to start with that, and then you kind of can mushroom out from there. So,
yeah, it sounds a lot like, we talk a lot, or I talk a lot in podcasts, kind of the origin stories of, how people get into construction lending and why are you even, there. What I've really found out is, people are just kind of thrust into these positions. Hey, go figure it out. Go start up a program, or hey, you're going to manage these construction loans, or hey, we're going to get you to specialize in this particular product. And there's just this lack of information content. I think it's definitely getting better, but it's not like you can go to school for this. You can't go to the local university and say, I want to sign up to learn how to originate or administer construction loans. There are some YouTube videos, some content online, but you really kind of got to either learn by doing or go out and find the information. It kind of sounds like it's the same thing for credit unions trying to understand, like, hey, we got to do this thing and we got to serve our members, but how do we do it? And Securn sounds like, hey, they're hungry for the same thing and they're collaborating to help each other get to that point.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, again, I think within the past 5 years, even the means to connect have grown, right? Between social media, websites, forums that we put up on our websites and our groups. So, I found it takes one person to ask the question and then it kind of lights a fire. You just have to be that, that institution or that individual at your institution to ask the question first. And anytime we do in a group setting, if it's an education seminar or something like this, I always start it off and say, don't be afraid to ask the question, because I guarantee you're not the only one in the room with it. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happens, especially with this product. So,
well, in the greater scheme of things, and I'm not surprised that construction lending comes up in every time you guys meet. Why aren't what do you think the biggest things that get in the way of a credit union offering this program? It sounds like everybody wants to offer this and serve their, but what is getting in the way of them actually being able to do it?
I think it is a lack of understanding at some of the higher levels within our institutions, right? We're immersed in it. We talk to the members, we see the products we lend. So, and it gets back to, there is a lot behind the scenes that goes into, from an accounting and the economics perspective for your credit union of setting it up. So having leadership that understands the product first and foremost, or even a general understanding of it to be behind you with it, I think is probably one of the biggest things. So again, one of the questions that comes up is, how do I pitch this, right? Like, I want to do it, how do we convince them that this is a good idea? And, again, we can evidence things by, look at our balance sheet growth or look at the interest income derived. And, while yes, credit unions are not for profits, I say we still have to keep the lights on and pay our folks. So, it has to be a product that makes sense, that's not going to be a loss leader. And most that have it find that it is, in fact, the opposite of that, right? It's a good segue into more lending, future lending. Not all builders just build by, with CP. You have those that do spec, and so then you become their preferred lender, right? So you have to think, several steps ahead of that product and why it's beneficial. Then the cross-sell opportunity between, the credit union products. So again, it's a pitch, right? Like any salesperson, you have to know how to present it right, and then just make sure the foundation is there within your institution to get it off the ground.
I love that, and I would never expect that that was like a big I gotta go sell this thing. I gotta convince people that this is the right way, and I gotta put it down in words and get them to understand that. Of those credit unions that you've seen come in and ask a bunch of questions and actually get it to market, cross that finish line and have some success with it, what do they say about the experience? Or what, when we start talking about outcomes and benefits, that's kind of where I'm going with this, is what have they experienced, or what have you seen them experience in being able to offer these programs to their members and their communities?
Again, I think it's, they just gain greater notoriety in their markets, right? So we do, again, while we don't compete with each other, we have plenty of competition in those markets. And so I think it's outside of just offering the vanilla, offerings that are out there. What one thing most credit unions are kind of known for are their portfolio lending. And again, this fits very nicely into that bucket of products that we offer. So, it's niche, but it's not, because I think it's a little more mainstream than some of the more, off the wall products that you might find that are out there. So I think it just, again, helps them cement their legacy in their markets and gets their name, helps their brand grow.
It's great. No, it's I always wonder that, what it's the before and after. And I'm just like in this really unique perspective of I get to see, hey, here's where we are today. God, we have this idea, we want to put it together, and then being able to follow credit unions like yours and watch it just grow and manifest into something just really, really special.
And two, you think about it, if your entire platform is predicated on refi activity or, loans that you have, the one thing you're always taught, if you've been in the mortgage industry long enough, is purchase, there will always be needs for people to buy homes. Refis come and go, but, regardless of the rate environment, people have to move or want to move. And so I think, again, if you can build this program, and what you'll find is by having this program, you kind of create that steady stream of purchase activity in your pipeline, so that, yes, there will still be ups and downs, but they're not as, dramatic or cause as big waves into your production as you would want to think. So,
what would you say to a CEO or president of a credit union that, maybe getting pitched by others that like, hey, we probably need to do this, and say their pitch is not that strong, right? They're kind of on the fence of whether or not we should be doing this. What do you think they need to hear that helps them understand the importance of these types of programs to their members?
Well, again, despite all of the moving parts to it is not impossible to stand up, right? And so I think, given the products and our core systems, we all more or less use the same platforms. There's only a handful that are out there. They're all built to accommodate these things. So it's just knowing how to, again, get the bones of it right. And from a talent perspective, you probably already have the talent under your roof, that can go ahead and stand it up and kind of run with it. So I think it comes to identifying those people, giving them the opportunity to, have a say-so or do their part in this. And again, I think from a cost perspective, the overhead in total is no different than any other loan type we have. HELOCs, we do HELOCs all the time, right? So think of the construction phase as really a temporary HELOC. We have that product built and done. It's just kind of tweaking it a little bit to meet the construction need. And, if you're already doing permanent financing, or even if you use a third party to go ahead and handle that for you, that's no different than, so you kind of already have all the pieces. It's just kind of bringing them all together and merging them. So again, I would say it is not as hard as it sounds. You just have to be, dedicated to it, and, the rest will take care of itself.
I asked you kind of an interesting question offline about, my curiosity with just really, really small credit unions, and, my discovery of like, hey, there's some like really, really tiny ones I've never even heard of. And what kind of business purpose, or were formed, for kind of a business need, and some of the for the employees there mainly. Is there, and with that in mind, is there a certain size the credit union should be really to make this program work? How would you think about that?
I don't know that I wouldn't put a size label to it. I would probably look more to just the lending structure and how that's built, right? So, if you have a CLO or a VP of lending, what's their experience with it? Or do they even have experience with it? And are you doing mortgage today? Are you outsourcing your mortgage today? If you're doing any equity lending, all right, so there's one part kind of cleared. Like I said, it's, you have to have the ability to have that type of product built for the construction phase. Then it's kind of figuring out the permanent phase. So yeah, I don't know that I would, again, look at it as there's a asset size or membership size that necessarily would predicate that. I think it's more of, again, the bones of the lending structure. Can it be tweaked to accommodate it, really?
Are there any implications And I don't want to give you this loaded question because I have kind of personal strong feelings over it. But do you see any implications of having somebody try to lead this product that's just not passionate about it, or doesn't, is really not that interested? Hey, I'm more taking marching orders. I'm going to stand this thing up. And how much does passion play into the success of these programs?
I think this is me personally speaking, right? So we let our entire sales team offer the product, but we've done, I think the best we can, or we continue to train them and teach them on it. And even for them, while some have been taught, they haven't necessarily done one yet. So, we know that, again, that's going to be ongoing. But yeah, there are a lot of moving parts. And I think, again, understanding the aspect of there's the builder as well as the borrower, that are really your customer in this, scenario, that you have to really do both justice. You really do have to understand the nuances, because, to me, the loan officer is always that point person, that kind of should be the subject matter expert. So I'm of the opinion that they should be pretty fluent in it, and definitely, not be disinterested in doing these loan types. If you are, then you should turn it over to someone that truly does enjoy doing it. I've worked at other institutions where we've had just dedicated folks to this product alone, or they had to, meet certain criteria or pass certain tests, so to speak, to offer it. So, again, because I'm passionate about it, I feel like those that offer it should be passionate about it. So, because I think, again, you're just doing a disservice to the borrower and the person who's ultimately going to live in this house if you don't.
You're right. I think that's the and I always think people are kind of surprised when I bring that out. I'll get asked all the time, well, what makes a successful program? What are the key ingredients that you got to have? And for me, it's first and foremost, it kind of boils down, if I had to boil it down to one word, it had to be the passion side of it. And it's not a loan product, correct me if I'm wrong, you can just stand up and let it run its course. It's not like offering hey, we're gonna offer something with a different term, or different rate structure or something like that, and yeah, it's just gonna coast. This is something that requires love and care, and somebody to really foster its growth. And without that key component, it is extremely important that somebody like you takes the reins and cares about it and nurtures it and wants to see it grow. And it's just so important. And I think it's like the most important thing to help ensure long-term success. And I hear it in your voice, Andy, and it makes me excited that you guys have that, because I know that when we flash forward a year or two down the road, it's going to be a completely different story, and you'll be hitting that 20% of production will be this product. And I'm just really excited for you guys there. Now we're nearing the end of the podcast here, and we do this thing called the lightning round. You've been briefed on the lightning round. I'm going to fire some questions at you, and don't worry, nothing scary here. But go ahead and throw the first question at you.
Let's do it. I'm a subscriber, so I'm familiar. I'm ready for you.
All right. Our first two are softballs. So, recent movie or book that you've recently read or watched that you would recommend to others?
You know what? Actually, my wife and I watched this the other night. Argyle was on Apple TV Plus, and I was not expecting much out of it because it'd been panned, but it was actually a pretty good watch for just some mindless entertainment. So
it was hysterical.
It was. I'm a Sam Rockwell fan. Like, I just like his stuff in general, and so I think he's a pretty funny guy.
Yeah, they had me at the whirly bird, and
exactly.
I was like, no way, that's not a thing. I was like, have you ever seen anybody do that? No.
Yes.
If you haven't seen it, it's a good one. But also, if you're thinking about subscribing to Apple and you got Apple, Manhunt, which was the Abraham Lincoln Manhunt for John Wilkes Booth. It's fantastic.
On my list, to watch.
And we just started watching Franklin, which is the story of Benjamin Franklin during the Revolutionary War, when he went to Paris to support for the U.S. And it just we're kind of addicted to those two right now. But,
Yep. Very cool.
all right, question number 2. Recent product or a product that you've recently discovered that you just can't live without that you'd recommend to somebody else.
Ooh.
Ooh, I stumped you.
So actually, so I have a beard.
Yeah.
So there's a beard oil from Buff City Soap. Again, great stuff. Highly recommend. You know, for those without beards, I'm sorry, I'm not offering you much help, but good stuff. And it's very reasonable compared to some of the stuff that's out there.
Buff City Soap.
Yep.
All right.
Shameless plug for them.
Always look at beard oil. Does it got the nice eucalyptus, smell to
Actually, my favorite is it's called Shave and a Haircut. So you know that scent when you go into a traditional barber shop? It's like that.
a little baby powder kind of vibe to it?
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
I got my shave the other day, and I was like, "Ooh, now I get it." I was like, "I can get used to this."
Trust me. Good stuff.
All right. Have you ever built your own home?
Not with a construction firm product, but we have with a builder built, again, chose from a variety of plans and all that on 2 different occasions. So
Here's the follow-up. Would you do it again?
absolutely. Oh, absolutely. So again, like for me, I love the process. Again, I kind of grew up with it and had been at, I actually used to do draw inspections and whatnot. So for me, like watching the stages, I even tell the team here now, they've even asked, they're like, can I go out and see one of the draw inspections? I was like, sure, absolutely. I totally encourage that because it's so cool to see, something built before your eyes. I mean, just it's phenomenal. Not to mention too, you can make sure the wiring and all that's done in the way it should be. So there's something to be said to watch it go from dirt to the finished product. It's a really cool process.
Field trip and training opportunity all wrapped up in one. That's
absolutely.
What is, I've already asked you about a lot of advice that you'd give others. What would be one question, if you got to ask one question to, somebody at a credit union that was interested in offering this? What one question would you ask them to make sure that they're ready to be offering this?
Oh, yeah, I would point back to, are you passionate about lending, right? Because again, for me, I genuinely love what I do, right? Outside of construction perm, like for me, the idea of putting someone in their first home or their forever home, I think if you have that bug, this product's like right up your alley. So I think you have to have a certain degree of love for lending, period, just to be able to offer this.
Yeah, no, it's very, very, very true. We talk about it a lot in the podcast about, just that relationship and, how it's different than buying a home that's already been there. You go out and you do a purchase of an existing home. It's a different experience. And I think, in our last podcast, we talked about the emotional attachment somebody has when they're, the stakes are high, stress is a little bit more, you're building your own home, but it's your home versus a home. And I don't know a better way to describe it. And I think you put it pretty eloquently that the passion kind of folds into that too for the individual that's experiencing that. And what the long-term effects and experiences for that person is just amazing.
I tell people, even the few that we've had here, right? Trends come and go, right? Color schemes and, granite, quartz countertops, right? You should build something because it's what you want, right? So, and having the ability to pick every little thing, I think can seem daunting, but once you kind of get going with it and you start, it becomes not a chore, but a labor of love. And again, it's yours. Like every square inch of that house is yours. Right. And I think that's what people don't sell enough about this product and how to go about it is, it's, this is your baby. It's like having a kid.
Very true. Very true. Got the last question for you. And,
Yep.
You could pick from anything that you've already said, but if you had to give one piece of advice to anybody out there looking to go down the same path that you have here, what would it be?
I hate to harp on it, but again, give me a call, ask questions. I'm sure y'all make my information available. I'm happy to share, do's, don'ts, lessons learned. And there are enough of us out there that I know are willing to help. If I can't do it, I can definitely point you in the right direction to do it, or to find those that have. So again, it just takes picking up the phone or shooting the email. And there are people out there that are definitely willing to provide some assistance. So
Love it, Andy. And if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, obviously, but Andy.Woodman at TVFCU.com. Shoot me an email. Again, happy to connect. And for me, that's the other beauty of this line of business, is getting to meet and talk to people in different parts of the country. That for me is fun. It's why I like being part of the Curin and Acuma and the league, and just meeting people is just exciting, and sharing stories and ideas. And it's that it gets back to the passionate part, right? Like, if you really love lending, you love to hear other people talk about it too.
Construction makes it that much more exciting.
Oh, it does.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast. We'll go ahead and host your information, so if people wanted to get in touch with you, they'll be right there in the podcast for them to reach out. But Andy, I thank you more that you got in here and you told your story and your experiences, and we really appreciate that. It's going to make a great podcast, but thank you for being on here.
I genuinely enjoyed it. Thank you. Hope to be back again. Like I said, we'll get a bunch for a yearly, yearly post-mortem on it. And two, look forward to seeing you in October at our Curin event in Savannah. So
looking forward to it, and we'll see you again in a year. We'll definitely do that follow-up.
Awesome.
This podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only and does not replace independent professional judgment. Land Gorilla Inc. makes no representations, warranties, or promises for and disclaims any express or implied warranties related to content. Before acting on any information, you should consider the appropriateness of the information as it pertains to your unique business needs.